If you're a man in your mid-30s, this is going to be a very insightful episode for you. I'm going to talk about why a strong body in your mid-30s is very different to in your mid-20s and then moving towards the future. And I'm going to give you 5 key areas to focus on that you can continue growing and building your capacity, so it doesn't matter whether you're the guy who is a husband or you have a partner, you have kids, you have a mortgage, real life is pulling you in every direction. I want you to stop measuring from what your life was and how your fitness was when you were 25 and start looking at what it needs to be now. Because a strong body in your mid-30s or in your mid-40s is going to be different to what it was like in your mid-20s. And I want to give you the simple areas that you can focus on in order to continue growing that, because a goal for me personally, and I want to share these stories with you, is I want to be capable of living a great life, being a great grandfather, a great dad, and still having adventures with my mates when I'm in my 70s. Because I don't want to work so hard and sacrifice everything so that when I get to that point, I don't have the energy, I can't move my bloody body. So that's why this is going to be an important one for you all there. And if you're stumbling across my YouTube for the first time, my name is Lachlan Stuart and I am a life performance coach. So what does that mean? Well, previously I was a PT, and I noticed that I kept talking to my clients and men about other areas of their life, and I thought, well, life performance, that's even better because I can help them reach full capacity across the core 4, which I'm going to introduce you today. And this one specifically falls under strong body. So first one is strong body, goes into calm mind, clear purpose, confident life. And there's more videos where you can learn about those ones, but let's talk about strong body. The key with having a strong body is that you need to decide what it looks like for you. Right? What a strong body means that it's going to allow you to live the quality of life that you want to live. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through those 5 pillars of what a strong body actually means for a man over 50 and why if you miss one, the whole thing wobbles. We don't want to do that. Let's get into it. So the first one, let me get my little image up here. The first one here is obviously getting clear on capacity. Right? The capacity is your ability to meet your life's daily physical and mental demands without breaking. So there's a great way that you can check this, and I've got a free scorecard which will be in the link below, and you can go through a quick quiz, 20 questions, under 4 minutes, and you'll get a result. But what we're looking to do here is everyone's life is different. How I live, the responsibilities that I have may be different to you. And sometimes it's hard for people to understand what it's like to walk in your shoes, so this is where we need to take ownership for this and start going, this is what has to happen for me, and this is the capacity that I need. Because some of you have children, some of you don't. Some of you are business owners, some of you aren't. Some of you have very expensive lifestyles, some of you don't. And depending on where you sit on all of those areas means you probably need to have a little bit more capacity, right? Capacity of earning, capacity of energy, capacity of emotional regulation, right? Capacity of patience. There's going to be a number of things in there that you need to look at in order to build a strong body. But when we're looking at it from a physical capacity, if you think about the exertion, right? How much sleep do you get? What do you do on a daily basis? So for me personally, I get up roughly 5:30. I tend to train for an hour, whether it's running or strength training. And then I'm running around to meetings. I probably do 3 to 4 meetings a day. And then I'm looking after my son. I'm wanting to have energy with my wife. And this is an important one. I don't want to use all of my energy on work meetings and stuff and then get home and have nothing left for my wife. So I know that I want to build the capacity to deal with more things. And this takes time. Think back to your first day at work. You might have walked into an office. You may have walked onto a job site. And after the first day, you were either physically or mentally just wrecked. Right? If you were swinging a hammer or doing meetings or sitting in front of a computer, it's tiring. Your capacity hasn't grown to deal with that. Now look back on your career and you might have been doing it for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and you just get through day after day without really thinking about your energy. And so your capacity expands through exposure. And this is why I'm a big believer in building your capacity to the things that you want to improve upon. But if physically you're stronger and physically you're more capable, it's going to give you a leg up. And so depending on how physically active or how mentally demanding your day is, that's what you can start to look to train from a capacity standpoint. And what I would look at is I go, okay, this is my day. What is draining me? Where do I need to grow my capacity as a leader in order to get that outcome? Let's move on to point 2, and these are the foundational parts. Point 2 is sustainable energy. Obviously, vitality, energy or vitality, however you want to talk about it. I try not to use vitality, but I've got it written down here on my notes. But it's powered by sleep and movement rather than caffeine and or alcohol crutches. You know, people like to get a little bit of social energy by having a few beers. It's really important, but it's even simpler. I was chatting with a young fella a couple of days ago, and he was asking about recovery. And I said, well, before I share with you some recovery strategies, what does your current recovery look like? And he mentioned saunas, ice baths, stretching, all of which are recovery tools. But I asked him about his sleep. Like, what's your sleep looking like? And he wrote back and he was like, oh, I probably get 6 hours a night. So I said, the first place I would start if I was you personally would be with your sleep. I would try and get that up to 7 or 8 hours a night. Because if you're spending time doing what I call active recovery, saunas, stretching, massage, you know, it's intentional. Go back to passive recovery, which is sleeping, just getting your sleep up. You will see a much higher return. LeBron James, right? LeBron James spends, I think, roughly $2 million a year on his recovery, but he makes sure he prioritizes sleeping 12 hours a night. So if it's good enough for one of the world's best, we need to look at that as a great place to start rather than going, oh, I need coffee to get me through. And once again, you need to go through an order. And the first thing that I do with anyone that I work with is we got to create the gaps. We need to know where you're currently at, like whether it's through capacity pieces as we're talking about, or if it's in the Calm Mind pillar or Confident Life. You know, we've got different frameworks to walk you through. We look at where you are, we get clear on where you want to be, and I want you to help me identify what you feel is going to close the gap before I give you any tips or insights. But once we have a clear idea on that, then we start actioning it, because the only way you can change is by doing something different, right? Very simple, very cliche, but you must follow that one. So sustainable energy, and how do we rate that? Well, energy can be a feeling, and the thing that I don't like about rating things via feelings is there's a lot of variables. It's how you sleep, it could be how well your relationship's going, it could be the number in your bank account. They all impact how you feel. But if you were to just get up first thing in the morning and shake it out, how do you feel? Do you feel energized and optimistic? Or do you feel like, oh, I need to go back to sleep for another hour or two? And that way it just keeps it super simple, and we can start dialing things in, okay? So we don't need to overcomplicate that for the beginning. So think about that for yourself. Number 3, right? This is a really important one, mental and physical resilience. I've got a process called the resilience loop that I really dialed in while I was doing the 58 marathons. And to me, I guess to give you this framework, but it's how fast you can recover from the bad sleeps, the hard weeks, and the life setbacks. We all experience it. And if you're here, and I do believe if you're watching this, you're a man who is trying to get more out of your life. Doesn't matter what area you're trying to improve, finances, relationship, excitement, peace, you need to grow, right? And that means there's always going to be that gap that I talk about. And then we got to know that if you're going to close that gap, you have to do things differently. When you do things differently, there will be adversity. That's the non-negotiable. You have to sign, a contract with facing adversity. And so your ability to mentally and physically be able to withstand that and keep persevering is going to be paramount. So the 4-step framework that I look at for this in the resilience loop is this. Firstly, you need to have the goal. If you don't understand what you're working towards and why it's important to you, you could be working your ass off and being resilient, continuing to push on when it doesn't actually improve your quality of life or move you closer to where you want to be. So firstly, goal. Secondly, we look at the standards. So the standards are the decisions made in advance around how you want to act, right? So it could be that when my bank account gets very low because I'm investing in myself, I don't want to panic and I don't want to snap at my family and I don't want to mope around. I want to know that, hey, I've invested in myself and things are going to come back. I believe in the process and I trust the process. Therefore, I want to be as happy as I would be if I had $1 million in the bank. That's the decision in advance. That moves to point 3, which is choices, which is actually what we do when the pressure's on. So when we're in that situation, when bank account is maybe low, maybe you've got $100 in the bank and you got to pay groceries and rent this week and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to panic. I'm going to snap at my family, when it's like, well, hold up. The standard that you set before you committed to this was that you wouldn't allow it to ripple into your family life. Okay, so that's going to be an important one. And I know I've used a money example there, so I want to give you a quick health one. And I'll give you the last point on that one just to close that one out, and then we'll go health. The final part is stack small wins. The reason why stacking small wins is so important is it helps you, firstly, build momentum, right? So sometimes when you're going well, you can take big steps. When things aren't going well, you take micro steps. What happens when you build momentum is you build your confidence as well, because you start going, whoa, last week I was here, now I'm back here. That's progress. And now my confidence is going to rise, and that then helps us take bigger and bigger steps. So that's that important one. But if we go back to health, so the goal could be, I want to be able to play around with my kids, like pick my kids up overhead. My kid I know is eventually going to be like 30 kilos. So I want to be able to do that. So I know that like an overhead press, you want to have 30 kilos. For example, this is a specific one. The goal is that. So the standards in advance is I want to make sure that I'm training full body and especially upper body 2 to 3 times a week. And regardless of the weather, regardless of any niggles or injuries, I'll still pivot and I'll make sure that I keep that commitment. The choice is you wake up one morning, it's freezing cold outside, it's raining, or you maybe wake up and your chest is a little stiff and you're like, oh, I'll just sleep and I'll get it tomorrow. You're either making a choice to be the man that you said you would be and achieve the thing that you said, or not. And the final one is to stack small wins. You may get injured. Right? When you're building fitness and growing, there's a high likelihood you're going to get injured at some point. I've been injured a lot, or not a lot, but there's always like aches and pains. And so the small step would be, okay, I need to, rather than just going back to doing the 30 kilos that I was doing, I know that I'm injured. I've seen a physio. I drop my eyes down to my toes and I go, the smallest step now is doing my rehab today. Rehab is bloody boring, but this is the small step that I'm going to take today to build momentum, to then get back to the point where I'm going to start lifting overhead again, and eventually I'll be back to the weights that I was lifting. So that's that process with the resilience loop there, and making sure that physically and mentally you are resilient enough to continue pressing forward to be the 35-year-old version of yourself that keeps up with the life's demands that you have within your life. Now, the fourth one is longevity. It's something that I have only recently started really prioritizing, and if I'm being honest with you, it's not a huge alarm in my life because I'm still competing as an athlete, so I'm not so much going into like all of these protocols. I just know that if I maintain my fitness now, it's definitely going to help me when I'm older. But the idea behind this one is training for the man you want to be in 40 years, not 2. And so that sort of hits me a little bit because I'm training for marathons at the moment. And I know that maybe I won't be doing that when I'm 70. I kind of like the idea at the moment that I could, but who knows? So what we want to think about, if you're an individual who is training for specific events, awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. I think it's only going to benefit you. But if you're not, if you're sitting there and you don't have a routine, you feel sluggish, you're not happy with how you look in the mirror, you got back pain, then this is something you want to start addressing. And there's going to be 2 things that you can do. Firstly, if you're comfortable and capable of going into a gym by yourself or starting an exercise routine, go do that. If you're on the other side of that and you don't, please get a trainer. It's going to be one of the best investments you can make initially, just for 12 weeks to start feeling comfortable in the gym and doing some basic movements that you can then get back to a routine. But the goal around that, and this is how I structure my programming for this, and we do it with our clients in the group, in the program that we run for them, because I'm a big believer that your body impacts your mind. So the men that we work with, we're helping more around their life performance, but we have to get their physical health sorted as a part of that. From the outset, all I'm looking at is how do we keep you aerobically fit, like have strength, and also get used to these fast outbursts. So I would generally, unless we're doing a specific goal, do 2 aerobic sessions a week, just some cardio. You know, some people hate it, some people love it. Then I would do 2 strength sessions, full body. And then I would do a VO2 session, one where we let you rip. Obviously, if you're very unfit, we're not going to just throw you in a VO2 sesh, but that's what we would build up to. And that's what I personally follow when I'm not training for a specific event. And you can do something like that as well. I think it's just produced so many great results for so many of the men that we've worked with over the years. Now, the final one, and this doesn't relate to everyone, but it does for me. It's objective performance. Performance still matters to me, especially as a bloke. Is like, I'm still competitive. There's this part inside me who wants to compete against others, but also compete against myself. I love knowing that my marathon record is 2 hours 58, and this year I'm striving for a 2:45. It helps me dial everything else in from a strong body perspective, but it also makes me look at other areas of my life. If I need to commit to the training volume to get a personal best in a marathon, I know how many hours it roughly is, and I have to have those conversations with my wife, and I also have to be prepared to make the sacrifices of investing that time there, which means some days I'm going to be knackered. But I've already made the standard that I'm not going to allow me being fatigued from training to be the reason why I'm knackered at home. I park that at the door and I just find another lease of life of energy, or I have a chalky milk and I just get on with it. I want to be the best there. And so that would then be a conversation, but I also know it helps me structure my week and when I actually train, depending on what the volume looks like, but it also gives me something to look forward to. Do you ever find yourself where you're just bunkered down in work, or you're bunkered down at home and it starts to feel like the same day on repeat? Having something to perform for, a race or a high rocks or whatever you like to do, whatever your sport is, tennis, pickleball, paddleball, doesn't matter. It's a moment where you get to pull yourself out of your life almost and just sink into a performance where you can go, I've trained for this, I've earned the right, and then you'll get some feedback. You were either good enough to achieve the goal that you wanted or you weren't. And that then is something that you can put into all areas of your life. Like, it's ultimately training to deal with sacrifices. It's training to potentially fail. It's dealing with setbacks, all things that happen in other areas of your life. And the cool thing is when it's happening physically, it's generally not a life or death moment, and it's generally something you can pull back. There's certain things in life where you can't. So that is my 5 pillars of a strong body. And they're things that all of us can implement. You can really focus on continuing to build your capacity. And if you would like a hand with that, like I said, take the scorecard and myself or someone on our team will be in touch to see whether one of the programs we offer could be a good fit for you. Sustainable energy. There is so much we can do for energy, but if we just focused on sleep and moving your body and fueling, super simple. You can learn that for yourself. Then we obviously want mental and physical resilience. Training for things and doing hard things can help you do that, but as I said, have that process, the resilience loop that will allow you to go, do I have my goal? Have I set my standards? Am I making the right choices? Do I need to stack smaller wins? Longevity, once again, think about other actions, the food choices, how your lifestyle is now going to set you up to be where you would like to be when you're 60, when you're 70. And then objective performance. Get out there and compete. Whether it's competing against yourself or competing against other people, I do think as a bloke, there is something valuable about that. I have not had a client, a mate, a family member who has done a competition with me where they haven't gone away going, I never want to do that again. They've almost been like, give me more. When is the next one? So thank you for tuning in. If you got value, remember, share this, but there's always going to be the opportunity for you to take this further with us. We'll see you in the next video.